What is up, everybody? It is your ever-loving Uncle Fish back again for the School of...
Look, I'm trying my best to get out of this, and I know it ain't looking pretty.
Just trust me, I know. I'll rewatching all these live streams again.
And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to bring you on, too, as co-host, is because you use an iPad and I use the PC. And so far, Little Kyron Silva from California is the only person that's found it yet. Lots of people have found, if you don't get the mini comics, you still get to enjoy the book. It's still awesome. But if you like getting the extra juicy bits, you want to get the mini comics.
The juicy bits now. Now, hold up. Listen, my birthday was literally just yesterday. Now I got to get myself a birthday gift form. I got to get the lore in. By the way, he stated that he does not like you. If anything, to quote.
Oh, yeah. I totally sympathize with him hating. It perfectly normal response.
Sir, you're giving me dangerous ideas right now. You're giving me very, very dangerous ideas.
What is up, everybody? It is School of Fish back again with your ever-loving Uncle Fish and your weird Uncle E. How are you doing today, Esteban?
I am doing ayeth, okayeth, ayo, and hello, it's me, your weird Uncle E, aka Esteban Carrero, and I am excited because we're going to be elaborating further. And the reason why I'm also I'm excited for a few other reasons. Reason number one, I get to finally show off my side of things. Mr. Fish, I feel like it's been carrying way too much here, especially showing off all the fun art stuff. Right? I gotta have my fun. I'm also an artist too, so we're gonna finally get to see how I do stuff as well. Also, we're gonna be elaborating on what we were teaching last week on the concept of character design. So last week we were touching on silhouettes, shapes, and how you can, play into the dynamic of what those shapes could represent or subvert them. And then we were showing off the idea of playing with silhouettes and how silhouettes are a key essential factor. Clothing being articles of clothing or something that is on a titular character kind of matters depending on the setting, the tone, everything else in between. Like if you're, going to have a something set in the medieval times, you're either going to have to wear very simple peasant clothing or, have to wear knight's armor or maybe something made out of a hide of a dragon or whatever. And if you're in a high-tech society, maybe you have to wear super advanced, clothing. Maybe everything doesn't even look like normal clothing. Normal clothing could look like God knows whatever. Point's still standing. That was what we were going to be talking about. That's what we talked about last week. So this week we're going to be elaborating further by talking about character design sheets. So the most interesting aspect when it comes down to comic design is obviously having to draw your character over and over and over and over again. And the thing that we elaborated on last week is talking about how you want to design the character simple enough to where you're not going to want to have your hand contemplate life and try to attack you, while you're in the middle of drawing a character,
It can get bad. And and because I do so much commission work for other creators, and most of them aren't artists, so they're using apps, to design characters and stuff with different bits of clip art to put it together. And a lot of these little hero generator apps that'll give you a nice little 2D image of the character, they're fun to play with and they make interesting designs. None of those designs were thought out to actually work in 3 dimensions or to be able to turn or move or be able to lift your arms without sticking blades into your ears from your elbows and your shoulders and stuff. None of this stuff was thought through. It was just quick little stuff somebody jotted down and they added it to the clip art file. And I have gotten some characters with some costumes that have literally made me want to pull my eyebrows out working on it. And you can actually kind of tell if I'm working on a project and I really hate a character because you will see it show up in the background all the freaking time because I steer into the skid. And if I don't like something, I'm going to draw it over and over again until I get used to it and I get over hating it. So if you see characters in the background a lot for no real reason, that's probably why I don't like them very much. And it's usually just because it's overly complex for no reason.
Right.
When there's a billion little things, fidgety things to draw on the costume and none of it's symmetrical and it's all,
Right.
Oh my goodness. Make it easy on an artist. I mean, it doesn't have to be crazy simple. It doesn't have to be Batman the Animated Series simple, but
just
you don't need 58 buttons on your shirt, come on.
Exactly. You don't want to overcomplicate the designs by any metric. Again, the best examples of some characters are like Superman, Batman, and even if they had a different art style, the costume is still very simple to draw over and over and over again. Superman's case is literally a blue suit, red boots, and wed wabbit. Anyways, red underwear and a yellow
He's got
belt.
wet underwear. You heard it
They
here,
got wet
folks.
underwear. Hey,
He's got
literally, I'm so
wet
literate.
underwear.
But the same thing with Batman. Depending on whatever rendition, it's usually a gray suit, black underwear, black boots, black gloves, the freaking cowl, which with the ears, like everyone knows how that works. Again,
And you
simplicity at
can
its best.
vary it. You can make it really simple. You can make it really complex. But those are the points that like tell you this is Batman. And
Exactly.
you can
And
play
heck,
around with that and change it.
and that's also true. Another really good, I guess, like a nice instance of like style, like again, a really unique way of thinking about it is like think about Spider-Man from say like either a comic book or a cartoon to say like Marvel rivals. Like the Spider-Man design in that game is overly complex, very intricate, super sharp in detail, and everything else in between. But then you have what's it called? Then you also happen to have stuff from the cartoons. They have to keep that stuff simple because again, they have to animate that character over. Unless it's like a 3D model type series, if it's like a CGI show, then that's something else entirely different. Because you can kind of keep those complexities and still have the
Oh
character
yeah,
flow.
like if it's a 3D model in a 3D animated series, you can add all kinds of detail into it and stuff. It can get kind of complex to see moving around when stuff goes really fast, but I mean, you could do it and it'll stay there, and eh, that's fine if if that's what you want to do. And some people love spending hours putting all these little details into stuff, which is cool and it's interesting, and people will open it up and go, wow, man, that is cool. But the thing that gets me is they're never going to spend as much time looking at it as you spent working on it. And most people are going to be like, wow, that's cool, and on to the next page. So I'm like, I just want to get the wow, this is cool.
Yeah,
And you can get that a lot quicker than all the fiddly bits. But also, as an artist that's always working from other people's stuff, having good reference sheets is really important. It really helps me if you have a nice turnaround that has your character from several angles, has everything, has the colors listed out, has all the details the way you want it. I am so used to getting so many so many images from new creators, especially, that have hired various artists to do a drawing or a sketch of their character, and each picture they have to explain to me, like, well, he can't do that, and he doesn't shoot lasers out of his eyes, he shoots them out of his elbows, and he can't fly, but he has him flying in this picture because that artist just does what he wants. And I hate that as an artist because I want you to get what you want. I want it to be an
right.
image of the character you want, and it bugs me when you don't get that from other artists. But also, like, that's not a lot of help to me when you give me a lot of images that are close but not really what you want. But
Hmm.
some people give me really nice tight turnarounds that have the character from all angles. I can see all the details and make sure I keep them all accurate and all of that stuff, and it makes life so much easier. Let's see. Well, Rob Anderson says the details that are lost is storytelling. Most creators prioritize art over story. Anime does so well because story comes first. Absolutely. Like,
This
there
is
are
true.
so many people that rely on, look how complex my drawing is. Don't pay attention to the story. Look how awesome this drawing is. And
Look at all the
that's
flashy
fine.
lights and the
I mean,
colors and all the other bits and bobbins. Plot, we don't know her. Like,
it's cool, but
it's
it's
cool, but
not a
it ain't
book
gonna get
you're
too
going to
far.
come back to over and over again. It's not a story you're going to remember. It's not one of those things that's going to plant in your head and start to grow. And you're like, oh man, I wonder what this is like in that world and what this is like in that world. You might think about the artwork, but you're not going to remember the story. Like, I remember a lot of movies that had lots of flash and sci-fi effects and stuff. I don't remember the story. I don't remember the
But you know what
characters.
I think is a really interesting thought process here, or you know what I think really helps, like what kind of story emulates something of this kind of caliber?
What's that?
Alice Lost in Wonderland, man. I
I'm here
mean,
to tell you, you want to hear about some good storytelling and some dang fine art. Alice Lost in Wonderland is live now on Kickstarter. You can go to gomrfish.com now to find it, or you can type in Alice Lost in and it'll show up. We hit, I think, 56% uh, earlier today. Um, it is doing well. It is the story of the short pitches. What would happen if Michonne and Tank Girl had a baby that was raised by Jesse James in a TARDIS? And if any of that sounds interesting, you're going to dig this book. Um, Alice got snagged up by the White Rabbit, who is a time traveler who has this sword that can cut through reality. It's the Vorpal sword. It can cut through time and reality. He grabbed her to try and save her life from a cult of time worshiping weirdos that want to capture him to figure out the secrets of time travel. He spotted her white hair and realized she was like him and didn't want them to grab her instead of him, so he took her. And once he got rid of the bad guys, he couldn't figure out how to get her back home, so he does his best to try and raise her. He teaches her the ins and outs of living in this interdimensional rift of Wonderland. It's often dangerous, often deadly, sometimes amazing. There's all kinds of aliens and ghosts and robots and stuff. All the weird characters from every public domain story that like Peter Pan and the Wizard of Oz and all this stuff, are all actual alien beings that are living in this interdimensional rift. They've fallen from their own worlds into this crazy place. And now, most of them are all stuck here. And this is where Alice grows up. Rabbit does his best to try and raise her. Doesn't necessarily work out so great, and she grows up to be one of the deadliest bounty hunters in the Rift, and kind of has a big chip on her shoulder for her old man. Her sidekick is the Tin Man, who follows her around, and together they hunt all the scary things in Wonderland that go bump in the night. In the first issue, she gets bound by a magical contract with the Cobbler, this interdimensional demonic deal maker, and now she's bound by this contract to have to hunt down her adopted dad, the White Rabbit, and deliver his head to the Queen of Hearts, who's a criminal warlord who rules over Glass City, and just so happens to have standing orders to kill Alice and Big Ten on sight if they ever show up in her city again. So somehow she has to figure out how to capture her adopted dad, deliver him to the lady who's sworn to kill her, and beat all the other bounty hunters that are looking to get him, not get killed in the process. In desperation, in issue 2, she ends up in a face-off with the fearsome Captain Hook of Neverland, which is this area of the poisonous high skies where the ground was lost years ago below these poisonous clouds that will melt the flesh from your bones. And everybody's flying around in these sky ships, but everybody in the skies is terrified of Captain Hook coming and getting them. And so Alice rides along on somebody else's ship until it gets captured by Captain Hook, and now she's face to face with her old foe. And we got to see what happens in issue 3. It's going to be freaking amazing. We got pages from the books that you can check out here, edited for Kickstarter. Because got to be nice. Got a little bit of issue 2 going on there. We got the first few pages of issue 3 on here, where Rabbit is dropping off young Alice after one of their adventures. He's dropping her off at the local brothel for the girls to watch her while he goes off on a dangerous adventure, as a good parent does.
Of
And
course.
and him and Alice end up in a fight, and he ends up screaming at her, and she screams at him, and everybody's leaving brokenhearted. And this hurt so much. Like, I
Ooh.
was trying so hard not to cry illustrating these pages, because freaking T.S. Luther just, like, we worked on the story idea together, like what was going to happen in the book and everything, and it's all my toys in my sandbox, and I laid all the ground rules for how everything works. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this and this, and I had a scene in mind, and then TS is going to come in and just sprinkle in enough realism that, like, it really stings, it hurts. And
So like he straight up Mortal Kombat took you by the heart, showed
oh
it to you
man,
beating in its hand, kind of a situation. Like that's how hard it hurt.
it hurts, it stings. It's like having your dad tell you he never really loved you stings. Like, it's painful.
Ooh.
It's it's hard. I'm telling you, he's a talented writer, and he brings in stuff that I really appreciate. He brings in things that I wouldn't have thought to do myself at times, which is why I love collaborating with him. Uh let's see. What I'm behind on some comments here. Let's see. Little Rob
Uh,
Anderson said, "You proved it because writers let artists flex while paying them instead of making the story matter. Art tells the story. It's not pin up with captions." Yeah, exactly. Like you have to be working together. You have to be working together to make one awesome story, which is why I love working with somebody like TS because like I give him an idea and then he runs with it and that gives me an idea to run with it and it just keeps going and going and going. Arthur says, "What up, bros? How are you doing?" And
we are doing
geez, that
a
hurts.
okay, and yeah, trust me, that did hurt. And I mean, listen, if you got a writer who's writing something so intensive that even the artist was tearing up in the process of illustrating, mind you, these exact words, then in my opinion, that honestly nobody asked for it. Y'all should go apprehend yourselves. Alice Lost in Wonderland issue number 3. Go support the Kickstarter. I mean, come on, you got an artist having to cry here. Tears were literally shed in the process of
Oh
creating this book.
man, it's
So
it's
I'm
been
just saying, y'all better do
so
it.
cool. It's been so fun. It's been so great to hear from everybody that's been enjoying the first book so much, and they're like, "Man, I can't wait for the next book to come out." And oh man, that box was freaking awesome. I can't believe how cool that was. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I'm super excited for it to go out. Anybody that got the deluxe box on the last campaign knows what I'm talking about. Like I went all out on making this thing really cool. I've got some ideas for stepping it up even higher this time to really make it in your face cool. It's going to be neat. We have a really hot shirt design this time with
Mhm.
Cheshire wrapped around Alice. We've got a brand new hat with Cheshire on there with all of his fangs, all of his many rows of fangs and everything out. And one of the things I love that is he always has such a sweet face when he's face to face with Alice, but every time he's behind her back, you see how sinister he really
Just
is.
like a,
Like
okay.
always smiling and ears down, like, "Oh my dear, never at all, never would I drink this." Just as sweet as he could be until he gets behind her back, and then all of a sudden, it's you see
Who
just
does
how
know
dangerous he
about
is.
the nine corpse?
It's a neat little thing if you really pay attention to it in the book. But we got the shirt design, we got the new Mr. Fish Comics hoodie, we've got the cool hat. I can't wait
Ooh.
for the prints to get in because I got they're fitted caps and they're actually big enough for my big giant head, and I got the largest one. But anyway, they're fitted caps. They're not the little snap back, cheap ones. I'm doing really nice caps and
Okay.
doing everything nice. The mini comic is getting taken up a notch. We've got if you've been reading the mini comics, you know that there's been a major change in Captain Hook from when Alice was a little girl to where she is now. How did that change happen? What instituted that change? We're going to find out as the story goes on. But you get all kinds of cool extra little bits of lore when you get the mini comics. And here we've got Captain Don't You Dare Call Me Hook or I Will Gut You on the back of a giant cybernetic dinosaur with machine gun arms and laser eyes, as you do. And it
Typical Tuesday afternoon. Come on, guys.
absolutely. It is getting so good. We've got the miniature figures, the D&D sized minis here. We had Alice and Big Ten on the first campaign. Now we've got Rabbit. I've got the new Captain Hook locked and ready to go as soon as we hit a stretch goal. She's going to be released. We've got delayed shipping, all that cool stuff. That's all available. And while we're at it, I thought I would show y'all the video real quick. So we're going to run the new intro video that I just did for Alice Lost in Wonderland. So stay tuned, kiddies, and watch this cartoon. hope that played better on y'all's end than it did on mine because it was a glitchy mess on my end. But anyway, that is it. That is it. Did it come out okay on your end, Esteban? Esteban, you there? Or did
Yep,
I lose you?
right here. No,
Okay.
I'm here.
Did the
Well,
video play okay for you on your end?
I didn't even realize the video was playing because technical
Oh man.
difficulties. I mean, hey,
Oh
listen,
man.
I can only imagine what it would look like on your side of the stream, because I can only
It
see
was
so
a
much.
mess. It was real glitchy on my side, so I'm thinking Restream might be having some problems.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh my, it is beautiful. I want more. The artwork is great. I love you, Arthur. Thank you for being my new best friend.
And you better
And
go
let's
get
see.
yourself stuff now at Go Mr. Fish. Yeah, wow.
Little Anthony Castro says, "Wow."
Wow.
What's up, Anthony? Anthony's a cool dude. I like going on his show on Saturday mornings. I think it's Saturday mornings, isn't it? Yeah. Um, Always a good time hanging out with him and talking comics of all kinds. But getting back to character sheets, talking about character sheets, there's a lot of as somebody that's had to work off of a lot of character sheets, there are a lot of things that I really like, and there's some things that kind of aggravate me. There's some base level things that I like to have. One character sheet that I've had to work with a lot that I do like is this one here of Tyrannus the Thunderlord from Eric Bennett. I can't remember who drew it originally. It probably says in here. It's created by Eric Bennett. I'm sure he has on here somewhere who drew it. Probably in the fine writing that I can't see. But nice clear images of the character front and back. It has all the details laid out. It has all the details of the shield laid out. It has a color chart over here, which is really important. Having
Mm,
little pucks of the main colors of the character that you want used in the comic. And a lot of people, some people will trust the colorist to use a color that looks right in the situation and the theme, working with everything that's going on, and make his hair look red, even though it might be a purple because everything's blue or something.
mm.
Other people want it to be, it needs to be this color. And if you need it to be this particular color every time, which is fine, having a color chart to pick from that tells me exactly like what the CMYK numbers or the RGB numbers are, or the Pantone numbers, or something that I can color pick from is awesome. Having something that will describe the main superhuman abilities and stuff. If you have a superhero character, having something that explains the powers that I need to keep in mind when I'm working on it is super important. I love having that on a character sheet because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been working on a character in a book, and I might have worked on a character in a book many times, and only to realize later that they had powers and abilities that I didn't even know they had because
Mm.
nobody ever told me. Nobody told me that they could shoot lasers out of their hands or whatever. So I never had them do that. And I'm like, oh man, all this time she could have been putting up force fields to protect everybody, and I didn't know that. But, if you didn't put it in the script and it's not on the character sheet here for me to look at, I don't know they can do it.
Exactly.
That's really nice. The only thing I don't like about it is this was designed to make a cool looking post or a cool looking page in a comic book, and it has all the cool complicated background in the background. I would
Mm.
really rather it be like a plain color, be like a flat background. It doesn't look as cool. It doesn't make as neat of a DeviantArt post as this one does, but it's easier to read, and it could be easy for little fine details. If the end of his cape was supposed to be ragged, let's say, I'm going to miss that looking at this, unless something clearly shows a big blown up detail of it. It it's easy to miss little things when it's this complex of a background. That's my only beef with it. Everything else I love about it. Let's see. Turn that off real quick. Uh, Thank you, man. Thank you. It's a nice one. I like it. Get to the right window so I can turn that screen off. Did you have some stuff you said you wanted to share?
Yeah, so I have this one character in mind that I made like sometime either it was this year or last year. I think it was sometime this year. Now that I'm thinking about it, just give me a quick second as I do the technical scene and show off my bit here. There we
Is
go.
it this guy here?
The yellow looking dude with
Yeah.
a blue. Yep.
Y-
So this is my character Rat. I looks nothing like it. My friends were coming up with like a bunch of very very unique characters they're gonna make for some, storytelling or something or other. I think it was a Minecraft SMP server or something like that. Roleplay server, I think it was, because we're early 2K kids. And anyways, so this character is just like a completely different, like whacked out kind of a concept. This is Rat. He's a weird mutant teenager looking guy, and to me, I actually think I very much enjoy like the stuff that I put on this, like for instance showing off the three different types of facial expressions, getting to see like
Mhm.
how he looks when he's like angry or annoyed, getting to see him shocked or like him being excited. And you can see how like the eyes are like playing, like a major factor into it, and also the kind of clothing that he wears like this blue hoodie. You kind of get to see what it looks like front and back, probably not the most detailed, but also getting to see his hands and feet. He has 3 fingers, 3 toes, but it's done in a really weird, kind of funky looking way. So again, to me, this is one of the better character model sheets for what I've made at the time. And this actually wasn't that bad. I have no idea, by the way, what to do with this character. Like genuinely, it's just a mutant teenager kid. Don't know what to do with him. Probably do something size of life. But that's like one. Let me see. But when it comes to the character designs as well, I also talk about like heights, like the different kinds of height levels of
Oh
some
yeah.
characters. We were talking about it before we started the stream. Let's see. I think it might be in here. Look at that. This was just a little funny. I just had to show this off, like me just carrying my little character, like it's just some abomination. No, but so this is actually a really fun example that I can show off over here. This is the former. There are some characters that are canonical or not to my book that I am working on. So these are a few of the characters. So we have, powerful, which is on the very far, like if we're going from what's it called, left to right. We have powerful, emerald turtle. We have boost, crustacean, electric shock. We have blue angel, and then we have the spider and what's it called, honeybee, right? So that these are just like some other characters, but the one thing I love about this kind of character reference model is like you get to see the different heights of every character, and you
And
also
how
get
they
to see like
relate to each other. Yeah.
exactly. So then say for instance, like, oh, I need to draw a scene where, powerful and Emerald Turtle are getting mad at each other and they need to like yell it out. I need to draw Emerald Turtle looking a little taller and then powerful looking a little shorter. So then that
Mhm.
way, when they argue, you can see that he has to look up and he would have to look down or something else of that kind of caliber. Also, if you notice on the sides, I kind of do the what's it called, like the height differences, right?
Mhm.
Thank you. Yes, I love these designs. I mean, these aren't the more official designs now. These were former designs. Some of them I'm keeping. Some of them, some of them changed. Some of them haven't. But I love these designs as well. But it also gets to show off the different height levels, which is very interesting. And I feel like if you're going to create, especially like a series of characters, this is what I recommend. Like draw them, in a very symmetrical kind of way. Draw them standing or doing whatever, but try to like line their feet up and eventually like get them standing next to each other, so that way you can tell what the height differences is. So then that way you're
Mhm.
like, okay, you know, so and so is this tall, and then you have to factor in like, okay, how are they going to react to a building, or how are they going to react to some of these other environments and whatnot. So those are some key factors that you want to like play into when it comes down to designing characters. Now, obviously, this isn't the only batch of characters I have. I also have these other guys right over here. We have the what's it called? The arachnid. We have the dragon, laser beam, his cousin Hellbat, and Moon Girl. And again, you get to see how they all kind of played, in different heights and whatnot, and seeing how they all kind of look compared to each other. We even have the Marvel Rejects. If anyone remembers the comic book that was going to come out, the New Warriors. I kind of just revamped them a little bit in this style. But again, getting to see their different designs and also learning to see the different compositions and how like the team would also work well together. Especially if you're making like a team book. For me, I'm making a team book, so colors are very, are very important to me because one character could be defined by a singular color, you know.
Hmm.
So, and that's something I
It's
want to take
nice
into
to be
consideration.
able to tell them apart quickly and easily by color, which was one thing. It's kind of difficult in Green Zone when everybody's wearing the same uniform.
But that's also another interesting thing too, because heck, even in animes, some animes take place in a school setting in which they have to wear a uniform. What you can
Hmm.
do is also playing with that uniform design. I think it was in Green Zone where you got to see Virgil have to wear, a belt in a really different way because of how
Yeah,
big and stocky he is in comparison to
yeah. He's
everyone
so
else.
big, he has to put it on his wrist instead of his waist because he can't fit it there, and he can't be out of uniform.
Exactly. And
So
then
yeah.
or another fun example of like big characters, at least in my comic book universe, we have Toxicon, we have the Raider, and then the two main villains, Crime Boss or CEO, and his, his equally psychotic and brilliant wife, Professor Puristine, so or Doctor Pure as I call her. Again, all showing off the different height levels, the different colors, or some colors that do work well, and seeing how they're executed differently, and
Hmm.
and even shows off like a different form of like their silhouette in a way.
Yeah. Now, you got Croc Boys talking about how short one of them is. Man, you want to talk about short? You want to talk about some freaking height differences? Okay, hold on a second here. This is the lineup I did originally for my book Green Zone, and I did it specifically because I knew Virgil was going to be 8 feet tall, so he needed to be taller than everybody else, and I knew that the boss Sergeant Kim over here was going to be he was going to be like under 5 feet tall. So he's nice and short. He's huge. There's people all in between, 6'4", 6 foot, all the way back down here to, hoping to be 5 foot one day. And so having this height chart has been a huge help to me over the years working on the book because it lets me really look and see like, okay, I've never really stuck Boggs over here on the end up against Sergeant Kim before. So how tall would Sergeant Kim be next to him? Like, okay, he's going to be down here at his shoulder. And how tall Waters and Kim are next to each other when they're standing, but then when they're standing next to another cop that's probably 6'2", I could realize, well, Brooks is 6'4", so I can kind of average it. It's really been a huge help for me to be able to make it work. Like there was a scene in issue 4 where I knew Virgil was going to need help in, and I honestly I had to come back and look at this to look at it to see like, okay, Brooks is like just tall enough to be able to get up under Virgil's arm and maybe help him a little bit, to walk when he had been so badly burned. And so, that's it. It's been cool. Let's see. Let's switch. Turn. Oh, wrong mouse. Too many computers. Too many screens. Embarrassment of riches over here. Uh, Arthur says. Let's see. Croc Boy says, "Bro, one of those guys looks like Black Mask," and
Yes,
Arthur agrees.
and it's more like the back to my little villain roster over here. So I guess for context, the going again from right left to right, Toxicon is like my Venom in this universe, just made of toxic waste material. It's a psychotic living embodiment of like chaos and toxicity, literally.
Hmm.
Then you have Raider, which is actually a public domain supervillain that I kind of just, rendered in a more modernistic way, or at least in my take of it. Crime Boss, aka the Black Mask Fellow, is actually, well, the same name, is also another public domain villain, but I call him like CEO because it sounds more like menacing, more weirdly official. Uh, I just wanted to say the video is absolutely amazing. It has some wonderful information and insight for comic creators. Yes, thank you, Philip.
Thank you so
Love,
much, man.
love those. Love you, Philip. Every single video, I always see your comment. Don't think I don't see it. Very much appreciate that. And the last one is Professor Piercy. Now, she's actually one of my favorite villains that I had like the joy of like putting together to some extent because one of my friends actually helped me out design her and whatnot. And she went off of a very like intensive anime inspiration, and I kind of took that. I incorporated the idea of basing her character off of a secretary bird, which if you've seen those, they're very well known for their legs, especially because they were able to stomp in like the head of a snake, kind of a thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I was trying to like base her aesthetic off of that, and you can even tell too with the chopsticks in her hair. So like the chopstick in her hair is like resembling of the little feathers on a secretary bird. And weirdly enough, a Nintendo Switch was also a factor into her design, simply because of the red and the blue gloves and the boots and whatnot. Like her, you can kind of see it like on her gloves and on her shoes that they're both like the red and blue colors of a Switch
Of a
controller. And
Switch.
then not
Yeah.
only that, but I like the idea of playing into like the fact that she is assured that everything is 100%, right? So I added a little percentage sign on her lab coat to
I
kind of
dig that.
resemble
I
that.
dig the like making it buttons to like, hold it together, but it's also like, I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it.
That was one of my favorite designs thus far, and she went through a whole process. She was once like in my head. I just envisioned her as some generic like doctor lady in a lab coat, and then my friend took it a
Mhm.
step further and just helped design this character in a very crazy way. And I took her design and then kind of went off of that, eventually making this. And now she is the most sinister compatriot and wife to the crime boss. Basically, I always wanted to see like an evil couple, and this is also just I can see the intensity with this. I also have another batch of villains for this as well. So we have actually the villain in my main book, and also if you saw the thumbnail to this video, it's actually based off of the giant robots in my first book that I'm currently like in the process of remaking. So the leader, the guy who's like leading all these giant robots, is known as the mechanical dictator. He's actually again left to right, mechanical dictator. We have the crystal, the man of mischief, magical and wonder. And then we have Murderous Might, and then we have Anthrax, the space bounty hunter. So again, getting to see like how the colors vary with them, uh, absolutely stunning. Thank you so much for that, by the way. Thank you, Philip. You are a top
No,
commenter in every
Philip
single
is
video I
the
put.
best. Apparently, I'm loving Philip.
No, Philip
He's a
is awesome.
great guy to
Every
have
single
in the
video, I
comments.
kid you not, I see like once I see like the elongated paragraph, I'm like, there's Philip.
It's a long comment. You know who it came from. Yeah, I tend to
Oh
be
yeah,
that guy too.
I love it, man. I love it. So yeah, so these are some of the villain designs, but also it plays. So again, you kind of see how their heights differ. You see their designs. Now, because for me, I'm going for a cartoonish, comic bookish aesthetic. The simplicity in their designs work, and I know that we're talking about super simple designs, but also, for instance, if you look at say Anthrax or the Crystal, right? You kind of see how they're complicated, but not too complicated. You can
Hmm.
kind of see to the point where it's like I can repeatedly draw these characters a little bit here and there, and it's not going to really annoy me, or it's probably going to annoy me to the point where I'm like, all right, I'll focus on you later. Let me just draw the cactus behind the scene or whatever, or something like that. Same thing with Anthrax. He has like a lot of detail and design, not a lot, but enough to where it's like, okay, it
It
still
keeps it
looks
interesting,
cool.
but not so much you're going to spend an hour trying to plot out what does this
Exactly.
complex design look like from this angle on this curve. Like, yeah,
Exactly. So that's
absolutely.
actually one of my favorites. And then we even get to some anti-heroes. We'll see some of these fun little anti-heroes here as well. So we have Hydraulic Arachnid being a little he has ties and connections to one of the other villains. That's all I will say. Then we have Honeybee and we have the Shard, who's like who has his powers from this crystal. And because there's not like a defined set color, he's actually like made of a swirling, rainbow array of colors, which I thought was really cool. So again, you get to see the different height differences. You get to see how their costumes look. My one problem is that I wish I did turnarounds, but obviously I was just designing characters for the sake of designing them. And again, the majority
Hmm.
of those are side characters, potential villains, so on, so forth.
Well, and
One of
if
my
you
other
ever
favorite,
decide to do that, you can. You've already got like the front view. But what you've done alone is more than I have done for any of my characters. I wish I had done that much for all my characters. The lineup I did for Green Zone is literally the only lineup or turnaround I've ever done for anything of my characters because I
mm,
just keep them all in my head. So I just draw them down. There's so many times I wish I had a nice image like that that I could send to my flatter. So when she's coloring a character she's never seen me draw before, I could send her something that's like, these are the colors that goes
Mm.
here and there. This is the places that are colored different colors, instead of her having to try and guess. And, and she does a good job guessing, but every once in a while I'm like, "Ah, why are these bolts a different color than the metal that they're going into?" But, she's trying to err on the side of safety.
No, that's totally fine. And I mean, honestly, that's the way it is. So for me, whenever I design a character, thank you. We'll do what we can to keep up all this great work. But also, when it comes to designing characters for me, I always go off like cartoon logic. So I always just make the characters flat. I don't add much shading. I'll only
Mhm.
add shading once I do like a comic cover of some kind. So then, again, that's more deserving of detail than just say a reference for a character, right? So also over here we have one of my actual Dungeons and Dragons characters now converted to a robot butler, Walker, and his side compatriot Wobble. Uh, Again, loving to play with the silhouettes, the color aesthetics, the color palettes, and again, just if I ever decided to start doing my stuff in color, I at least have this kind of reference. And again, nothing too complicated, but again, there's just enough to where it allows the idea for more designs to be like attained over time.
Okay. I don't know what your ideas are for this character. I don't know what their history is or anything from the games. I don't know what you have planned.
Oh
I
no, listen,
know.
let me tell you this now. This character, okay, so this is Walker, right? The superhero universe Walker. All right, let me see. 3, 2, where are you? There you are. And then 3, 2, there you are. And this is Walker from my Dungeons and Dragons campaign when he was a uh like a mail delivery guy, or like a mail delivery service bot. We were playing, I forgot which one was it. It was the snow theme campaign. My friend's out there and she's watching this. It was your game that I played this character in. He had a voice of going like, "Hello, I'm Walker. Lovely to meet you." Very Baymaxy in a weird way.
Mhm. I
But
was
yeah,
gonna
anyways,
say,
what were you gonna say?
when I look at those two characters next to each other, and I see the big tall dude with the broad shoulders and the thick arms, and I see that little bitty round dude, I I just envision the one dude being really big and strong and very nice and calm and pleasant, and the little dude just being a little chaotic barbarian, destroying everything that he comes in contact with. Like, the juxtaposition of taking what you would expect to be the two different, places, like we were talking about last week. Sometimes having the big guy being the smart guy and not just the big dumb brute or whatever. Like, having the bigger, more impressive robot dude be very nice and calm and like very C3PO, while you got a chaotic little ninja blender R2D2 dude down here at the side going nuts on everybody. That's just what pops into my imagination. But your design inspired my imagination, so that's freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, and I guess this is a really fun. The one thing I love about this character Walker is that he's actually, so in my comic book, The Unbeatables, my main character, powerful, the black and white monochrome power button looking superhero. He's actually the son to the world's greatest super team, the Ultra Five, right? And version is definitely, wait. Let me see. The Butler version of Walker is cool, but the Dungeons and Dragons version is definitely fantastic. I 100% agree. But also,
It
I
is.
wasn't going to make a comic with the D&D interpretation. But anyways,
Yeah.
Walker is essentially the robot butler for the Ultra 5. He was made by the smartest member of said team. And then Wobble was basically made as a babysitting robot when two members of the Ultra 5 had a kid, which was, of course, my main character. So they kind of play into that little thing. So Wobble just being like this cutesy little, you know, thing to help babysit a child while the parents are off fighting God knows what. And then Walker is just this robot butler who kind of helps out. He's like Alfred, he helps out the team whenever he needs to. He's the guy behind the chair, but
Mhm.
he has nothing else better to do because he's a robot. So, anyways, but again, getting to see the character silhouette, getting to see the designs, and also the character sheet, and I can use this as a means of helping myself like design the character for, say, whenever I create that one chapter that I called No Place Like Dome, where I'll introduce Walker in that scenario and introduce Wobble as well. So again, this can also help me like draw them in different ways. Now, because I have a more rendered out concept of how this character looks, and again, because of how simple his design is, I don't really need to see a full turnaround. Now, would it be better if I did? 100%. You don't need to have a
Mhm.
turnaround all the time. Now, there are times where I wish I did have a turnaround for, say, like the Emerald Turtle over here, right? I only drew the
When
front
you
side of
got
his
a
character.
lot of details, it's nice to have detailed shots of what's all underneath there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I kind of regrettably did like part of it was like, I wish I drew the backside of this character because, what's it called? In one of the pages that I had to draw for my comic, I realized, oh shoot, I have to draw like the backside of a character, especially like again, it's barely noticeable because he's like yay big in the entirety of the page. But when you really think about it, I'm like, I have to take those details into consideration. So some character designs
Mhm.
you need to take into consideration the back design, the front design, or heck, maybe if the character has something very important on the side, right? Like Miles Morales has, like in the most current movie, has an entire like red pattern that's like going down like from the palm of his hand down his armpit down to the side of his legs, right?
Mhm.
That's a very important factor to take into consideration. Classic Spider-Man has that red spider logo on his back, but yet has like a whole red section here with a black spider logo. So those are things you have to take into consideration when you design a character. Yet, as for me in particular, definitely front and back. But of course, if there's something essential on the side of said character, make sure that you design that part as well.
See, that's my thing. If it's essential, make sure you include it. I see so many turnarounds of characters that people have done where it's the front, it's the back, it's a three-quarter view, it's the side with the arm removed so you can see the side of their body, which is great if you have a really complex suit of Iron Man armor from the movie and you need to know what all the shapes are from all these different angles. That would be really helpful. If
Yes.
you've got a pretty girl in a red silk dress with no frill or fringe or anything, you know, I don't really need to know what she looks like with her arm removed. I can pretty much guess from the front of the dress to the back of the dress what's going on in her armpit. And, I don't need that. Like you having several heads to show what the face looks like in different expressions and stuff, that would be helpful to have. If if the ear on the other side of his head was a big cybernetic device, having a close up of that would be really helpful. If he
Exactly.
has an omnitrix on his arm, having a detail of what it looks like when it's open and closed, that would be great to have.
Yeah,
But,
especially with asymmetrical designs. So far, I've
mm,
only been, and you know what? That's actually a good thing to point out because I've been only showing y'all some symmetrical designs, stuff that's even on both sides. Let me see if I have anything here. Definitely in my more fantasy section over here, I should have something. Like for instance, when I drew this tiefling monk, who's like levitating, and he happens to have a metal arm for whatever reason, right? You can tell that if I was to properly draw this character out, you would need to know that number one, he already has very long hair that extends way further down than it should. Not only that, he has one metal arm, one regular arm, right?
mhm.
You can see like the horns on his head have like a bit of an ombre effect. His eyes are a different kind of color. That's something that has to be taken into consideration. Let me see what other character do I have here. Ooh, I got
And,
two that are
like,
really
if
good.
you're gonna give me that character, I would like to have a nice flat image of what that pattern on his clothes is, like, a full image of that pattern would be really nice to have as a reference if I'm gonna be drawing this over and over again, to
Right.
know what I'm trying to copy and mimic, or do I just put cool pattern on there? Like that kind of stuff would be neat. One client that I've done a lot of images for Thunder Woman, Dan Hoynes Thunder Woman, she has a really weird shaped cape that connects like I can't remember at her elbows or to the backs of her arms or something, and on the back of her costume. Anyway, it's a really weird shaped cape, kind of like a weird H with a short leg in the middle too. And
Mhm.
I want a nice flat image of what that cape looks like because every time I've tried to draw it, I've gotten it a little bit wrong and he's had to give me corrections on it. If I had a nice flat image of what it looks like, I could know what it's supposed to be so I could make it right the first time.
Right. That's actually a good point. That's actually something really good to point out. I also have some really good asymmetrical designs too. Starting off with this guy over here. This was a character that I once played. His name was Trick. He's like this little a little demon magician looking guy. But you can tell that if I had to design the character, there would be a lot of asymmetrical things about him, like the fact that he has tattoos on his arm, and on the other one, it's more covered up with this weird shoulder padding,
Mhm.
And again, like you get to see the tail, you see how his feet work, stuff of that kind of caliber. And again, on a similar note, I also happen to have this character. His name is Keegan. He's like my dragonborn warlock with a genie patron, and you can tell that like how his armor would look with that one piece over his arm. Again, very asymmetrical. Has a cape, has like a really spiky tail. If we were to go more in depth, you can tell that he has a very like a little spiky tail with a bit of a texture to it. Gets to see the muscle of it. Gets to see some other scales like on his shoulders and whatnot. And even going as far as to seeing that little compass detail, like right over here, if I can go more zooming into that. So you can tell that there's like detail with the compass there. And then, even getting to see like his face itself and the little buttons and whatnot. Again, those are just, some of these things are too small to really ever like fully dive into. But it's nice to know that, say, if you ever do a close up, you at least have a reference from that point on. And then
Know what
also,
you were going for originally is a huge help, because a lot of times, like, we're guessing it's a squiggle, which has been kind of cool also. Because, like, as somebody that does character art for people and stuff, like, I've had people send me ideas or stuff, and I'd be the first one to draw a character. And so I draw it out, and I'll put all these little squiggles and stuff in there to insinuate that there's tech or something on this bow the archer's using. And to see that go through over the years now, go through sometimes 10 different artists' hands, and all those little doodads and stuff start to grow and become actual things. And that little square I drew on his belt for no reason ends up becoming like a communicator device or something later on. Like, seeing how it grows from each artist taking a whack at it has been really fun to see.
oh yeah.
I planted a seed and they watered it. And now it's become this thing. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and I mean, again, I have like a ton of other references. Or heck, another interesting case was this one time where I made this. This was just something I did for fun, like a satyr, like cleric of some kind. Hey Uncle Lee, I love your videos. I love your art so much. I'm assuming that's meant to say, inspired me to make comics, and have been doing that for 4 years. I love you, Uncle Lee. Thank you. Love you too, Arthur. Love you too, buddy. I'm glad
That's
that you're,
awesome.
doing what you're doing. Keep it
See,
up.
you look at me and say I'm an inspiration. You out here inspiring people to be making comics for a while now, man. I tell you, I've been nothing but impressed with you since I first crossed one of your videos on TikTok, and that's why I sought you out and wanted to become your friend, because I was
I
like,
have no. I don't
this
even
is a
know what
dude
video
going
that
through
could
it.
have been. Honestly, like straight up, I don't know which video that was.
It was before you. I don't even think you had. I don't know if you had any pages done for the Unbeatables at first. You were just talking about it. You were just talking about how you were going to make a comic book, and you were talking about it as, I've got this character that's basically Ben 10, and I got a Spider-Man, and I got, like, you were talking about it in that
Oh,
manner in the
those
beginning,
my one of my first few videos ever came
way back, and I was like, oh, bless his heart, he's getting sued. What was my first thought? And but then I started to see some of your concept work for the characters and stuff, and realized what you were talking about, and I saw how engaging you were and how much you were trying to give back to the community already, and I was like, this is a cat I want to watch. This is a cat I want to know. And so, here we are.
And here we are. And again, just to even show off the unbeatables over here, so that we have more context to each of the designs. Again, and the one thing I loved about the unbeatables over here is showing off like each of the designs and how they all work. We have Blue Angel over here wearing more and like something battle armor ready. Again,
Mhm.
even if you were to look deep into some of these details, like even from the knee pads to even like her weird janky looking feet, you can tell that they look armored to some extent. Same situation
Mhm.
with like her with her glove, even you can see that there's like a tactical kind of a look to it. It's something that looks more, padded, something that's more tough, like if she's meant to be a part of some, intensive battles. And
It's
then we
meant to take a
see
hit. Yeah.
exactly, she looks like she's meant to take a hit. And then on the other side, we have Rocket Fist. Again, Rocket Fist is one of my favorite
Speaking of
designs.
take a hit,
Speaking of taking a
dang.
hit, I kid you not, I made Rocket Fist for some of the game, played it in Mr. Fish's game. Mr. Fish did his take on this character, and I took his take of the character and then combined my first element with his element to make this design for the character entirely. Now I love the fists, I love, like his mask. And again, it show but here's another thing too that comes down to character designs is that you get to see the like the different ways. Like to me, Rockafist really stands out a lot because he looks more mechanical compared to everyone else. I was just saying
Hmm.
how like Blue Angel seems to look like someone who's like a tactical angel, if you will. Rockafist looks like he made these fists in a garage, kind of a thing, you know?
Oh yeah, they look like he took apart like a backhoe or something, or a bulldozer, and crafted these gloves out of it. And I love it. I love it. I'm here for it.
Exactly. And then on a completely different note, we have the Emerald Turtle, which was the Green Turtle public domain character, and I modified him to look like a Power Ranger kind of character. Now, yes, he has an exposed mouth, but it does the Optimus Prime thing where like it could, close in and whatnot and
Oh,
kind of show
cool.
that whole facial thing. But it shows that he has a really cool weapon. It shows the logo. It seems something like straight out of a Tokusatsu show, which is also, which funnily enough, I think, getting to talk about Love Bug, she feels like more of a tokusatsu character, like something straight out of like Power Rangers, Super Sentai, than
Hmm.
Emerald Turtle does, which I
I
kind of
can
find a little funny.
just see her moving her arms when she talks.
Like,
Like
oh
I
my god, like
just
I don't know what's going on here, kind of a thing. And then of course Boost. Now Boost is a really funny one because I actually drew this character. It was not even a character; it was just a costume design that I just put in one of my sketchbooks. And I was like, when I was making the Unbeatables, because I had no script, I was like, you know what? I can add a speedster here to justify a thing. I found this one, and you know what? It's not every day we get to see a superhero wear their name on their actual, super
that
suit, which
was a bold choice. That was a really bold choice. And it really, when I first saw it, I was like, it really gives me NASCAR vibes. And then to hear the backstory about where it comes from, I'm like, this kid's brilliant. Like he's really thinking this stuff through. It looks like he's advertising his own self down the suit. Like it. Oh, I love it.
oh, exactly. And then from there we have my childhood superhero, Ultra Power, or I called him Ultra Power. Now I call him Powerful. Ever since I saw Invincible, I thought the name kind of was fitting. I was like, oh, his name was Powerful. And the reason why I designed this costume the way it is like now was centered around this logo in particular. It was centered around the power button logo. My cousins, my siblings, my parents can testify. I made this my personality logo for the longest time because I was thinking to myself when I was 12 years old, I'm like, what logo has not been used yet for a superhero costume? You get every different kind of bug, you get an animal of some kind, primarily stars and circles and all those other kind of crazy shapes.
hmm
But I'm like, what's the one thing that hasn't been used yet? And to me, I didn't, not that I'm aware of, or not that I'm aware of in any official media, but to me, I think this logo was something that hasn't been used yet. And I wanted to use this logo ever since then. And I started to develop the character. Now, mind you, I was 12. His suit looks vastly different, then versus now. Like at
Oh
the
yeah.
time, he was wearing nothing more than a white suit that had just the logo on it and a jacket because I always tried to draw the character as if I was going to cosplay them at some point, you know? But now I want to go all out. I had the Spider-Man influences and some other, techno-based kind of stuff, and eventually leading to design that you see here. So again, playing into the factor of like what their powers are all about, like what's this, whole situation. And again, the character model sheets all throughout helped out, especially when creating some of the pages. Like a
Oh
really good
man.
example here. Let's show. I'm gonna show off a page of my book over here. So
Show
this is
off
a
a
scene where
page,
like
man.
yeah, so we have a scene where Rocket Fist over here is getting his arm back after hold on, I think it's more funny if I give some more context. So after a little save and rescue, you know, Powerful's just like, did anyone lose their mega sized rocket power fist? And then just hits him in the face and goes back and then clips back onto Rocket Fist's arm, you know? And then from there, he's saying, like, yeah, you made me miss my shot. But throughout the process of drawing this, I had to take into consideration like how this arm looks. Like again, it's simple, but you can see the amount of detail that's in there. You can see like again the
There's
little
a lot of detail in it.
circular,
Yeah.
yeah, the little circular knuckles, even the base plate on like the back of his hand, the whole major wrist point over here, even from the little let me see if I can just do this so I can actually write it and not affect it. But even like when it comes to wrong one. But even like these parts right over here, like where they're gonna like shoot like for the the flames out whenever like it's going to be shooting out.
Hmm.
Those are small things that have to be taken into consideration when you're designing the entirety of one character. And again, it may not be a lot, but it does help out by a metric ton, especially if there are those that do pay attention and do look deep into the art itself.
Yeah, and like that's some place where I start to think when I'm designing characters now, like I could make this really super complicated, or I could make that jet part a shape that I could make out of a simple tool, in the drawing program. I could make it out of a curved line or something instead of a whole bunch of jaggedy little bits, and it'll make it a lot easier to draw 1,000 times from 1,000 angles. And so I'll think that through, because if I'm just doing the one image of it, then each one of those jet boosters is going to have all those little movable blades that they have on like a jet engine to help focus
Mm,
the stuff. If it's something I'm gonna have to draw a whole bunch of times, it's not gonna have that because that's too
exactly.
hard to have to do a million times.
And actually, these are some of the references that I use throughout the whole process of making my book. So of course we have my main boy over here, powerful. Again, not the most intimidating pose, but again, you can kind of see where most of the like again, if I was to use a reference of some kind, this is the reference that I used. You can tell
Mhm.
how like again, looking at his arms and his chest, you can see how all those all the blue lines kind of play into an effect, all
Yeah.
throughout, you know? And then same thing with the emerald turtle over here. This is actually the more Power Ranger looking suit when his mouth is covered. But again, even if it's just a simple pose, you get to see the flat colors, you get to see where the yellow is being implemented, the dark
I
greens.
love the Power Ranger look of him. Like, the all the shapes in the sword and the turtle pattern on the gauntlets on his arms and legs, like, the whole thing just reads like he is the Turtle Ranger, and
Exactly. That's what
I
I
love
wanted to
that
go
dude.
for. And
I
he's
love
actually
it.
not
You
the only
killed it.
one. His story actually is that he's actually part of the Crystal Turtle Squad, which is like a whole like crystal themed thing over in China in particular, because he's actually the public domain character is a Chinese made American uh a Chinese American made character. So that's actually rooted in the fact that that's who made him essentially. Then we have okay. This is the crazy part about Rocket Fist. So this is my first drawing of Rocket Fist, and you can see there is way too many lines, way too many details on this character, and you can see that if I drew him now, like with this design, I'd be my wrist would want to murder me, right? It's like you can see this design, and I did way too much. Now this was based off of the Hero Forge reference that I made when I put it on Hero Forge, and then I did this. But when Mr. Fish did his take, he did a more rounded concept with it. And from there, I took his rendition, combined minds, to create
100%.
something beautifully complex, but yet something simple. And again, I use this as the reference. And again, I don't add any shadings or anything like that because, again, I'm going to have to use some of these colors over and over and over again if I'm going to maybe make a cover or if I ever do color it at some point. I'm just,
Mhm.
just as like a fun little method of reference here.
It's a whole
And
lot easier to color pick the right color off of a flat color image than when I get
exactly.
some references image from people where the artist has gone over it with 100 layers of screen and multiply, and there is no solid color anywhere on the character to pick from. That's why I love having those little pucks in the corner that tell me what is the base color of the clothing, and then I can work from there and I can put highlights and shadows, but where am I starting from? I love that.
Exactly, and the same thing with Blue Angel over here. Just a simple pose. Even knowing like the color of her wings, it also plays a huge effect, and also the fact that she also wields a sword at some point. So you get to see how that kind of looks. Buggy is or I love Bug over here is the only character I didn't really do much of a crazy pose for because this was a more newly rendered design. Because at first I was actually going to go off of this one over here, which is Honeybee.
Hmm.
So I was originally going to do this one, but I'm like, let me actually just try to steer away from, making it look like Spider-Man. Let me just try something else a little different. And instead of that, I then, leaned into the more Ladybug aesthetic. And then we have, well,
I love her
Lovebug
look.
over here.
I absolutely love it. And I love the short hair. It's really cute, but also kind of makes more sense if you're fighting crime than having really long hair flowing behind you that's easy to get grabbed or snagged, and like, oh, I would not want to be grabbed by my hair and thrown around by, some super rock monster.
Exactly. And not only that, I mean, I also have some other characters in here as well. Oh, that's not that's Boost. No, we also have Unicorn Girl. You know, I just thought this was a really fun design. But like my major inspiration for this one was Luchadora and unicorns.
Oh God, I was just gonna say, like, she looks like the luchador is fixing to come out and just fixing to lay the smack down. I can hear the theme music playing and the fireworks going off as she's running down, fixing to hop in the ring. I love her so much. Oh my God, I want to see her in a comic book.
Dude,
I
I'm
want to
telling
draw
you,
her
I
in a comic
I
book.
made way too many side characters, but yes, Unicorn Girl is definitely like canon within the Unbeatables universe. But again, playing into, you know, again, if we had to make it educational for the young kiddos out there for the world, we're playing with obviously different muscular for different body types. I didn't
Hmm.
play into making her a very slim type of woman. No, I played into making her a bit more beefier, a little bit more muscular because she's a luchador fighter. So of course she's going to need to know how to, you know,
She needs to be
lift
strong
weights.
enough to defend herself in the ring. Yeah.
Exactly, but I also still wanted the idea of making her feel like a pretty little princess, so I used the colors of white and pink, very pastel.
See, I love that. Like, I had a friend of mine is a female bodybuilder, and like she's big. She's like refrigerator big. She is a big woman, and she is very very strong and can lift more than my gigantic body at one time.
Oof.
She is a big time power lifter. I love her to death. She looks like a beast, but she is also one of the girliest girls I've ever known in my life. And like she loves the pink, she loves the unicorn, she loves the rainbows, she loves, you know, pretty tassels in her hair and stuff. I was doing a character design class with kids at a Comic Con one time, and they designed this big beefy character of this woman. They wanted her to be big, giant, and strong. And I was reminded of her, and I started asking them questions like, what's her personality going to be like? What's her outfit going to be like? Is she like, a tougher, more macho girl, or is she, a really girly girl? And I described my friend, and everybody got super excited, like, oh, she's got to be girly, and she needs stuff in her hair, and she needs a little bag on her side that she can have her makeup in and everything. And I was like, oh, she came out to be such a cool looking character.
Oh, wait, did the screen go out, or is that just me?
Yeah, it went out for a second there,
Okay,
but
okay,
it's back.
and then playing into another design for a character, we have Adam Bomb Jr. who was like a superhero from the 1950s and somehow teleported to the future or whatever. And he's like this super run of the mill, like, oh, gee willikers, guys, I don't know how to really solve the situation here. Even though he's made of, even though he has like nuclear level powers and whatnot. Again, playing into him being very fun, energetic. You can see in
Chucky
his
Dons, I'm
eyes.
afraid I might have a meltdown, boys.
It's like, oh no, no, I don't want to have one of those now. Oh, gee whiz, guys, do we need to? Like kind of that character. This one is another one of my favorite characters. This one I feel like would tie into Rocket Fist story because I made Rocket Fist and then this character right after. This is Slime Glider. Again, I love. If anyone watched my public domain like remastered of the
Yeah.
Fantastic Four that I done, I actually based the pose for my Mister Fantastic, off of this pose here. So this is actually the first one that started that. So he's basically made of slime. And one of my favorite elements of this is that you get to see how like I was able to make him look like some weird young looking teen, with a weird flowy hair, but still making it look like he's a slime based hero. You
Hmm.
know, simple in design, only very few colors. Another factor too that you need to take into consideration when designing a character, you want to limit the palette of a character, right? Because you don't want a character
Right.
like, for instance, Thor from Thor: Love and Thunder has a very intricate costume, is super super detailed, and to me, I feel like if I was going to draw that, I had to go through like 17 different shades of blue, black, yellow, and whatever just to even mimic like an ounce of that design. Again, every character that I've drawn this far, and because it's my style, I go for something simplistic. So therefore,
Hmm.
you also want to have very few colors, like three. I think five at best should be the maximum amount of a color palette for, say, either a suit design or just a character in general.
Yeah. The more I go in my coloring journey, the more I evolve, the simpler I'm trying to keep things, and the more I want to limit that color palette. on the entire page, the more I want to limit the color palette on a character, the more I'm thinking about how one character plays off of another, whether they're adversaries or their teammates, you know. But like, you need to be able to pick Captain America out of Thor, out of Ant Man, out of Iron Man. You need to be able to tell them apart when they're all in a group shot fixing to run into battle. And, you know, the color choices that you pick for that helps a lot.
And a really good example of like especially utilizing a somewhat like monochromish kind of color palette here would be this character over here, Lightspeed. This is a character that I made like a while ago, but again, it's orange and yellow. Those are like the primary colors for this character. Is just orange, yellow, and then blue, just to give the distinct look over of his eyes. You know, and another good example would be the original character I had in mind here called Levita, which is, now Lovebug. But again, I decided to take this character and make it pink and white, very girly, very like, very nice. Another fun character, just simple 3 colors on this one. 4 if you're counting the eyes, but we have Moon Puncher, or Knockout or something like. What was the character's name again? Lights Out. That's
Moon
his name.
Puncher. I love
Moon Puncher.
Moon Puncher. Oh my god, I wanted to be Moon Puncher.
Hey, you take Moon Puncher. His name is Lights Out.
I'll do it too. Don't think I won't.
Oh, trust me, I have no doubt in your mind. I have no doubt you would. But again, very simplistic in colors, and I can take this design of the character and go off of this, or I can take this design of said character and utilize that as the reference. Say if I'm making a Lights Out comic and I have this character model, I'm like, all right, I can go off of this. I can see the logo; it's a crest, it's a crescent moon. I see he has like this cool like Moon Knight hood aesthetic. Very simplistic, straight to the point. The design is simple. Very few colors, and that helps me out by a metric ton, especially when having to draw him repeatedly. Now, obviously, I don't expect to show like the backside of this character's, like actual back, because I'm gonna most likely cover it with a cape or whatever. But you kind of get the point of what I'm trying to get at here. The whole point is you want to make the characters extremely simple. You want to make them, or at least simple enough to where if you can add details, that's always like a bit of a fun, like extra bit for you there. So again, it's stuff like that. Really
One
good.
thing I've noticed too when I'm watching your time lapse videos is I enjoy the part where you start cycling through colors, trying to figure out exactly where you're going to land on something sometimes. And like, what if I make the trim red and I make the boots yellow? And what if I make, the suit blue and, and going back and forth? That's honestly one of my favorite parts when I'm designing a character. I used to back in the day when I'd be designing a new character, I would like take that character and stamp it out a few times, and I would do 5 or 6 of them in different color schemes and see what did I like best? What really popped out the most to me? Like which one really stood out? And oh, I enjoy that part. I think that part's a lot of fun.
Actually, I'm gonna show this off a little bit here. It's a little time lapse. Probably not gonna be as clean, but you can see how I'm like designing the posing of this character all throughout. Again, also when you draw a character, make sure that you also find like a good pose that you can draw them in, because that actually might help define how that character is interpreted all throughout. Like again, some of the characters that I shown off, like Unicorn Girl or Atom Bomb Jr. Like you see those characters and you can kind of tell what their personalities are like. If you do that, it kind of helps you stay motivated to keep them on that track, or probably divert away from it once you help progress with the story and whatnot. Now, this is the part where it kind of like gets a little, this part down right over here is where it gets a little interesting, because I start experimenting with some colors and whatnot. Like at first I do blue, and then eventually I do like a red or like a black and red with the blue kind of thing. So that's always like the hard part. And then, for some characters that's not as difficult, others it is. But again, my point still stands. Like when you're designing a character, you want to make sure that you want to put them in a pose where like their personalities. You guys are giving us some fantastic advice for creating our own comic characters or drawing our favorites. Hey, I'm glad that we're able to provide such, some advice here and whatnot. Again, I'm only just showing off. This has been like the biggest excuse for me to finally show off all these fun designs and whatnot.
Oh man, you've got so many awesome designs.
Oh
I'm
my god, you kidding me?
jealous.
Listen, some of those characters are just stuff that I've originally made, or I took public domain characters. Imagine if you gave me like the ability to draw other heroes from other properties. For instance, there's a line of comics called the Atlas Seaboard comics or whatnot. Basically, it's
Oh yeah.
anti-Marvel. Like once the rights, there was a whole story behind it, but basically they tried. There was this Mark Goodman, I think it was, tried to create his own company to rival Marvel Comics. And they called themselves Atlas Seaboard because Marvel at the time was also known as Atlas. So they took that name
Hmm.
and made it its own thing. And what's it called? And then throughout, I designed, I kind of redesigned a few of the characters, like the Destructor. I even tried putting the letter, D on his chest and whatnot to kind of make it look more super heroic. Then, of course, there is Tiger Man, or at least my rendition of it. If you saw some of these characters, they're like, how do they even last this long? They didn't. They all had
Yeah,
like they only had like 3 issues at max, 4 if the character was lucky. Most of them were all
Tiger
just a bunch of
Man
one.
was
And then we
Tiger Man
have
was an idea. I'll say that.
what's up?
Tiger Man was an idea. I will give him. I will say that much. It was an idea.
Was an idea. I mean, this one is left to be desired. I
That's
obviously quite.
cooler, but yeah.
And then we have like the martial artist, which is like the hand of the dragon or something like that. I just called him the Dragon Warrior. Just decided to go for a karate gi kind of look. I tried playing off of a dragon fruit when designing the character because I thought that would be funnier. And we like to be funny here.
Oh, I love that.
Target, like marksman. He's like, again, you can kind of see the logo, very simple stuff. This one was an interesting one. Actually, drawing this character on an action pose. Oh, I gotta show you the action pose on this one. Where is he at? Okay, so here we go. This is a more fun action packed stuff. So we have the Destructor. You get to see him being more like ready for like a battle like pose. Tiger Man in a more cat like positioning and such. Again, you get to see how their bodies showing off their pose, what kind of character they are. This was actually a fun one, doing like the Dragon Warrior, but playing off the, using like a chain, showing off that it's like probably like a magical, mystical thing. I decided to do like a green variant of this because I wanted to make it look different. I actually like this design a little bit better, in my opinion.
I
And then we
like it.
have Target, just simply holding his guns, ready to just take down the next target. This one was my favorite one. This was the I forgot what it was called. What's his face? I called him Phantom Fear. Basically, he's like someone from the 18th century died. Satan's like, I bet, listen, you're gonna kill all these, bad dudes and send them over here my way, and made him basically like a Ghost Rider, but in a weird way. So I just wanted to play off of using a skeleton horse. Again, playing with different ideas like this. And again, I can use this as a reference for if I ever decide to, for whatever reason, use these as a comic. Again, this isn't just also me trying to show these characters off. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. But I'm also showing off how you can use stuff like this to help yourself, like create, the character. Be like, okay, wait, what's the color of the knee pads, or what's the color of the belts that are on his shoulders? Oh, they're like this shade
Oh,
of brown.
that comes in so handy. Like, how many belts did I put on his leg again? Which leg were they on? Like that kind of stuff. I'm forever having to go back and look at because I don't do this. If I did this, my life would be easier. If I just made a nice image of the character to go back and look at, like I did that for Captain Ahab in the mini comics, and I go back and look at that all the time. I haven't done that for anybody else, so I have to keep going back and digging through old pages to see what did I draw the back of his outfit to look like on that page, and I wish I did more of this. I wish I
And again,
practiced what I preach.
so, and for me, I definitely do this a lot because number one, for me, it's kind of like weirdly enough, this also plays into how like I play, like how I used to play D&D. It's been so long, but when playing D&D, I always like to draw out all my friends' characters just so that I'm like, okay, I want to know what they look like first, so then I can get an idea of how the scene's gonna play out in my head. If you just give
Mhm.
me like, oh, it's this, this, and this, I'm like, is there any other detail? Do they have like a scar? Or it's like, what's the length of their hair? How are they being presented? Like my friends love getting into detail, especially whenever we did like a ball gown or like a festival type of story arc or whatever. They always love to draw their characters in these like very beautiful dresses and whatnot. So, that's a really, that's a fun thing for them as well. But for me, I love drawing out the characters because it helps me get an idea of like what is it going to look like if I ever interpret it into a comic, or if I made like a fun little fan
Mhm.
art piece for them, something like that, and that helps out by a metric ton, even if you're doing something for fan art related stuff, or if you wanted to, again, make your own comic, make your own storybook. Even you don't have to really, again, this is just for all illustration in general. Even getting to show off stuff like this, again, you can see how just simply having some of these designs help you out in the long run of things, you know? So all these designs, if I was to say make a comic for of these characters, I have a reference to go off of and I'm able to utilize this and it would make my life a lot easier. Again, adding the shading, the lighting, that stuff is secondary, but you want to have primarily the character and the flat colors that make up who they are. Again, when you draw Superman, you know you're going to draw a dude wearing a blue suit with red boots, red underwear, and a red cape with the logo looking like the letter S,
It's
like a
little
letter.
Kyron Silver from California. Welcome,
How
Kyron.
you doing,
Glad you.
Kyron? But
But
again,
yet,
also,
like for that one in particular, like if you've got like say Bigfoot, then maybe having several views of the face from different directions and what his jaw looks like open and closed, and what his brows look like when he's angry or when he's scared, that would be really helpful for me as an artist. If it's say a character like Superman, if it's a human dude, a straight on view of the face is fine. A side view would be lovely if you got it. But if it's got weird architecture to the head, or they've got, weird headgear on that I need to think about, or complex helmets, or a whole bunch of eyes and mandibles coming out of their face, seeing that in a turnaround from a lot of different angles would be really helpful to know how that works. We are talking character turnarounds today, little Karen, and what makes a good one. And Esteban has been really good at making a whole lot of different images of all the characters and stuff that he comes up with or redesigns. And I wish I was as good as him at doing it. I usually just work on the fly. I pretty much only draw what I'm getting paid for anymore. So I'm just drawing pages, and I got to go back and look at the pages I did before to remember where I put stuff. I wish I did more of this.
oh yeah, and I mean, also kind of like diving into that. I mean, I think that's what also helps build a connection too. Now, say if any of you here or whoever's watching this at some point is a writer, and if you really want to get an artist to connect and to really have that kind of drive to be like, I should like, oh man, I really wish the character would look like this, that, whatever. Obviously, there's that communication buildup that a writer and an artist should have, right? Mr. Fish, you worked on numerous different books with different people. I can only imagine that you're like, oh, it doesn't look like this, that, whatever. Obviously for me, if I was to, for some reason, or like for instance, when I was working with Lucky 33 when designing characters for the Galactic Delivery Dudes, right? I was able to like, okay, what kind of characters should I design for this? Now I drew some of my sketchbook, but I remember drawing, like a squid-based monster and or some other little characters here and there. Some of them didn't really matter as much. Some of them did. Some of them played relevance. A really good example of this, obviously, would be the characters of that you see here, Pete Simmons and Pepperoni. Again, we love puns, and we're just loving
Pepperoni! Oh, I love it.
Pepperoni, Pete Simmons. You gotta love like the simplistic
Hey,
jokes
I
on this.
recognize some of those people eating pizza down there.
Oh yeah, me too. It was actually a lot of fun putting this all together. Again, love. You really got to continue this one. But again, when designing one of the characters, I designed this one over here. The guy who says "Greetings, I'm Maz." This guy right here. I remember like designing him, and I had to go to Ezra to be like, "Oh yeah, like what do you think of this?" And he's like, "Actually, yeah, that's kind of perfect. We'll go off of that." And then I even did this squid dude right over here. I'm like, "What do you think of this?" And again, they liked it. Again, the whole point of this book too is supposed to feel like a Nickelodeon's cartoon in the '90s. So I like to believe I did a relatively okay job putting it together.
Filthy, filthy Kyron. Always has to take it to the gutter.
New character sheets are always appreciated. I mean, true. I mean, that also depends on what kind of character you're drawing. If it's a dude, it's a dude. If it's a
The
chick, I mean, whoa,
Adventures of Naked Man.
listen, I get it.
That's the
Hey, it helps
powers
out a
of
lot.
being
Plus,
naked in public.
it's like you get to do those character customizations. Like you have the nude model and then you put the clothing on said character. It's always it's like dressing them up. You always love to do that.
It's like paper dolls back in the day. I can dig.
Exactly. And again, and even design. Oh my gosh! Wait, let me show this off here. What's it called? This is a really good one. So at some point, if I ever continue on with the Galactic Delivery Dudes, this is the truck that I have in mind here. Right? This is the car that they drive. His name is Skit. Right? It's also a play on words of like Kit from Knight Rider, but Skit. skirt.
Mhm.
I don't know. I was trying to be funny here. So like for instance, I saw like the size of the truck. Like what would it look like? Would it have this? Would it have the words of Planet Pepperoni, which is like the established business? This is like what the side of the car looks like. This is like the different head styles of it. And the car in this comic talks. It's a talking car, but he's like a defective one. So like he has like broken speech. But you can see how like the windshield wipers. So then I made like a little note over here. It's like the windshield wipers as eyebrows. So it
I love
helps
that idea.
emote the face of the car and how it's feeling.
Mhm.
And actually, I showed off what I was originally going to use. It was like a more 1950s style kind of a, like, rocket car. But, I was like, probably not. And then from there, I also decided to play on the idea of like, what if it was a transformer? What if like there was a situation where they were going to like have to fight something, but they didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, it turns out that the car could transform. So I took the idea into consideration. Like, okay, for instance, the head of the car when at first when you're driving it looks like this, but what if it was the torso? And then, maybe we get the sides of the car over here, and then making that like the shoulder pads, getting to show off like the square build of the car, something like that. And trying to find a way to incorporate, like the head structure. And then I actually have the more official design of that character right over here. Oh, wrong one.
Transforms into robotic pizza delivery dude.
Exactly. And then I played on the idea of like what would it so of course I had to make it look like a pizza delivery guy. The hat, it wears like a little hat with the logo on it, has like, the weird like generation 1 Transformers, side vent face pieces.
Mhm.
Very simplistic in design. Again, you because I honestly I love generation 1 Transformers designs in general because they're very, very simple and they're very fun. And to me, this is also like one of the most exciting ideas or like the little designs for this that I really had for it. And I mean, not only that, I also had to come up with other characters for it. Obviously, you're gonna have your main characters. So for me, that wasn't really difficult. Designing the main characters because I had them for quite a long time. We have again the human Pete Simmons and his best friend Pepperoni. You know, I love the design overall. They're very simplistic characters, and not only that, the only difference being is like one has hair, one is bald, and also one's green, the other one's a human. So makes sense. One of my favorite concepts was having to design, outside of the truck, I designed maybe their bosses, like you have Tony Ziza, who's like the chef, who's like, hey, I'm making the food out here. And you have Dobert, who's like their supposed like actual boss. Now, obviously, I don't think this is went officially through because this was stuff that my brother helped me out later on with. And then we came up with like different enemies that they would have to encounter. We have Captain Black Olive, who's like this pirate captain who's trying to steal their pizza or whatever because it's the best in the galaxy. Then you have Sizzling Sandra, who is like this taco looking, you know, enchilada lady or something like that. And then you have the appliance armada leader. This was it the samurai slicer. Just getting to play with those little ideas. It's just ridiculous. You got to have a little fun with designing some characters and whatnot. It also depends, I guess, on the tone and of like what your story is. Another fun example is the Meatball Menace. A giant planet made of meatball, a meatball sized planet, a meatball that's the size of a planet is what I meant to say. And then you have the chicken teriyaki kaiju. It's all ridiculous. It's all funny. But stuff like that does kind of play importance to it. Now, again, these are just rough sketches. But imagine if I took the time to really look into this and flatten out the colors. I can take this exact, thing and again use it as a means of referencing it and drawing it over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Ooh, I'm talking too much.
John's gonna be sore by the end of it.
Okay, there we go. Any other thoughts, opinions, and everything else in between?
Man, you have got such a plethora of characters designed. And I mean, honestly, if I go back and start digging through all of the random characters that I rolled up and drew like on my TikTok, that's a lot of characters. But
True.
I'm really impressed with the amount of work you've been putting into that, man. It is I am I am really impressed with it, man. I really am. I got to
Thank you.
tell you. Great character designs, all nice and clear. If somebody could give me that to work off of, I would be happy as a clam. That would just be lovely. It's nice, it's clean, it's clear, it's to the point. It shows all the details that need to be seen. That's the kind of stuff that you need in a character design. You can go overboard and put lots of extra stuff in there, but you need the details. And, you
Mhm.
know, knowing who the character is, what they look like, what can they do, that's what I need from a client to be able to give you a cool comic book. And so that's the kind of thing that's good to put in there. And as somebody who's constantly having to go back and look through his old comic books and go through old drives to try and find images of this one guy from behind that one time in that one book, so I know what the back of his outfit looks like. I wish I did more of this. I'm telling you to do what I say and not what I do. Do what he do, not what I do, because he does a much better job of that than I do.
And again, it just plays into the maximum efficiency of just getting your stuff done. This guys are really nice, totally fun too. Yeah, and I mean, for me, my whole thing is I gotta have fun putting the whole thing together. You know, like if you're not having any fun putting together, the character or getting to like compile the different ideas of what the character's gonna wear, then it's like you're only just kind of creating, again, at this point, kind of like what Kyra's been saying, just like a nude model, and you just have them dress up and that's it. But I think there's like something more to it when you get to know their personality type, when you get to know, like, okay, say for instance someone's more doom and gloom, what are they going to wear? They're going to wear probably some black, they're going to wear maybe some weird things to
Oh
probably
man.
shout that out, or again, maybe they're feeling happier and cheery than a clam. What are they going to wear? Are they going to wear a sundress? Are they going to wear something bright, colorful, stuff like that? So if you know the personality of the character, then the clothing is actually going to have just as much of an impact. Again, a good example of this is like Danny Phantom. If you ever saw the character designs of Danny Phantom, Danny wears like a fairly generic type of stuff that feels, relatable to everyone. We all wear a jean and t-shirts, we all are like that. But then you have his side characters that also have very much like larger personalities, like his love interest, Sam, who is a goth girl essentially. Black hair, wears a lot of black clothing, the boots, the skirts, you see her design, it's like, oh, you can kind of tell what kind of person she is. She tries to view things as doom and gloom, and it's like saddening or whatever. But then she has more character personality to him. Again, his best friend Tucker, he's a tech guy. It was the early 2000s, so technology was weird. So it's like getting to play into those design elements and getting to understand the character through their personality and what they wear is a really important factor.
Yeah, this is you made me think of this character that I've got that I've been dying to use for 30 years, Rage. And she's a homeless teen. She's got this ability. She is an exopath. So whatever she feels, she can make everybody else feel. So when
Mm.
she's upset, she makes everybody else upset. When she's, crying, she can make everybody else cry. But also, like, if she burns herself with a cigarette, she can make you burst into flames. Like, she can amplify what she's feeling into other people and just make it like 100 times worse. And she's also dealing with, feeling the feedback of everybody else's emotions. So she's on the run from her family and everybody else around her. She doesn't know how to control these powers very well. And when she gets scared, things go bad. If she gets hurt on the run, everybody around her is breaking legs and stuff. It's bad. So, you know, going into this like homeless teen kind of vibe, like her jeans are all tore up, her knees are all scraped up, her shoes are all jagged and old. She's wearing her late father's old military jacket that's
Mm.
way too big for her, and she has to roll the sleeves way up just to get her hands to come out of them. She's got multiple layers on of like sweatshirts and stuff to, because she's homeless and she's living outside. She's got a backpack on her back to carry her stuff around in. Like, all of that goes to tell you right away, a lot about this character, including down to the little pink barrettes in her hair, which tell you that, she's still a little bit girly. Like, she doesn't she's not here because she wants to be. She's not in this situation because she wants to be. It's all she never asked to be a genome with these kind of powers. And
Mm.
but that tells you a lot really quickly about who she is and what's going on in her life. And, I dig that. You reminded me of that as you were talking about like moody and dark and whatnot. That reads really quickly and lets you know what kind of character that is. I
Yeah.
hope some of this stuff has been helpful for everybody watching. And thank you so much to Arthur and Philip and Little Guard Silva and Mr. Midlife and AtVab Animates and let's see. Oh, Croc Boys, thank you for dropping in. Thank you to everybody who's been in the comments hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. It's been a whole lot of fun. We're
It's
going to
been a
be
blast.
here every Wednesday for the foreseeable future. So tune in, hang out with us. We're going to be drawing, we're going to be working on projects, we're going to be talking and sharing. Lots of live streaming and drawing. So, and two really cool artists to get to work with. We've also been talking about doing a bit where we come up with new characters and roll up some new powers and see what we get and see what either one of us can come up with those powers and maybe some other artist friends that we invite to come on with us and hang out, see what we come up with. Because I know he's going to come up with something way weirder and different than my weird thing I'm going to come up with. Because I mean, this is my wheelhouse. I love rolling up random stuff, and I that was my favorite thing about doing superhero games. Other people always want to like, well, I want to make Iceman, so I want my powers to be this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. I'm like, but what if you wound up with like able to generate ice and super speed and generate anti gravity? What would you do with that? That could get really weird and really cool.
I
So, I
agree.
mean, I loved getting random stuff rolled up and like, how am I going to make this work and seem cohesive? And it gets darker and weirder sometimes. Uh, One guy ended up with like 50 hands, but it's,
I mean, it also challenges creativity too when you're forcing yourself to like roll up a character concept. You know, like when you have
mhm.
to roll stats up or whatever, it's at the mercy of either the dice, the generator, or whatever. And now your goal is to try to take this exact concept and basically make a whole character out of it. Again, I actually did a video on my secondary channel, but on that second channel, did a thing where I rolled for a hero. And this character had reality warping powers, but also had the ability to shapeshift and was a former spy, now turned superhero. And then, I had to justify like, what does this character shapeshift into? And then I decided like, oh, she's like a Beast Boy character. She shape shifts. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Careful.
I
You
know.
want
This
to, you
character
want to get
happens to be,
monetized now.
I know, right? I'm actually just now reaching that threshold. But this character now has the ability to, shapeshift into different animals. And maybe she wears this power armor, and this power armor has to like fit her. So when she transforms into an animal of some kind, she
Hmm.
warps reality to let the suit stay on her. So when she turns into a giant T-Rex, you'll still see like an armored T-Rex. If you see her like as a bear, so on and so
And
forth.
that's a cool opportunity to have those like magic fabrics like we talked about. If you can warp reality, you can have that perfectly skin tight, you know, suit that's indestructible but doesn't show wrinkles and like you can do that. And then you can have other characters that are more janky and have homemade gear and and show the juxtaposition. Um, well, that's not showing anything. Hold on. Why is that not showing anything? Let me try different
It is
screens.
nothing more than the void of our own minds.
That wasn't it. That turned me off. Okay. That's not showing for some reason. I got it over there.
And a
Why is
happy
it?
birthday to Arthur. I didn't know it was your birthday. Thank you for
Oh,
coming
happy
to the birthday
birthday, man.
podcast, man.
Yeah, it's not showing for some reason. I don't know why it's not showing. Um, I'm
But
gonna
yeah,
try one more
but what's it
time.
called? But I was gonna say, like on my side of things, I'm gonna try to start, my new series roll for here. I made my own custom Lego dice tower, so I can't wait to see what other fun characters I get to roll up. I'm gonna create like a whole like cinematic universe, like movie poster with all the characters I'm gonna roll up. I'm gonna make like
Oh
10
man.
and then make like a whole poster. Hey, maybe you know what? Because so I took like the old videos, I'm kind of like re-uploading them and whatnot. But when I do like a new set of these, you should totally like follow along, probably do your rendition on the character and whatnot.
Oh, that would be so much fun. I would love to do that.
Oh my god, yeah,
Um,
like just do a response, a giant
yeah,
turkey man.
Yeah, this was one. This was a character that I randomly rolled up. This was one of the last ones I did on my morning sketches before I got too busy and quit doing them. But I got like mutant somebody. It was a failed scientific experiment that had the powers of winged flight and like a vulture and something else I can't remember. And so like that was what I came up with. And he needed this tech to keep him alive, if I remember
Mm.
correctly, from it. And let's see, this one was one that I randomly rolled up and ended up naming her Hornet. And she's got super speed and tech skills and all of this stuff. And I see her as like one of those street level characters that's running around in the subways and the back alleys and stuff, kicking people's butt, and everybody kind of thinks she's a bad guy, and she might be a little on the edge, and like knows a lot of bad guys and stuff. But when you're living down on street level, that happens. This was one of the weirdest kids that I rolled up. And he was like super smart and all this stuff, and able to control other tech, and had all these tech based abilities and stuff. So I ended up coming up with this like kid that has this big giant brain and uses this joystick that he built to just control freaking everything. And
Wait a minute,
and he's
that
just a menace
reminds
to
me.
society.
Wait a
uh
minute. Hold on, that reminded me of a character I made not too a while ago. Oh, where is he? Where is he? He's here somewhere. Oh, I gotta find it. I gotta find it because that character specifically reminded me of this one villain I made. Oh, I found him. Oh, I found him. Okay, I gotta show this guy off. This dude is gonna be hysterical to show off. Give me a second here. And to be
this
honest,
one, I rolled up like, I think I rolled up like a biblically accurate angel that got its power from technology, I believe is what I got, and had gravity manipulation powers. So
ooh,
I ended up designing this six-winged monster with all of these sensors all over it, and it ended up with like this rings of rocks that it's spinning around it in orbit around it. And I ended up animating it at the end. I had the rocks spinning around and everything, and
ooh.
it was really
I don't
cool.
know if I don't know if it's able to show my screen because when you showed off your little brainiac kid character there,
Yeah.
I had to show this one dude off. See,
Yeah,
is
here we
it?
go.
Oh my god! So I thought of like, oh, this is so funny because at some point I want to make a story where the unbeatables have to like fight off basically an incel kid who got
Mhm.
himself who somehow apprehended a dark tome of like black magic or whatever and ends up using it to warp reality to start making it look like his Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And but in this case it's called Mazes and Monsters. So now the unbeatables now had to like play the game in a way, and they were trying to play as like their D&D accurate classes, and they're trying to save basically one of their teammates because you know he's an incel like, kid, and he's like, oh my god, I like this character, I like this one, I'm gonna make sure I have her for myself, like that kind of a
Mhm.
mindset. So
Oh yeah.
when I saw the Brainiac kid, I instantly thought of this one. So his name is Maze Master. He's just this again. Look at him. He looks like one of their painful, like basement dwelling nerds in the '80s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've played in his game once or twice, and then
Oh
I
no.
left because yeah. Nope, not for me. That's one reason. That's one reason that there's never romantic situations in my games when
Mm.
it's a table of all dudes sitting around. Like, nope, 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 no. We're not going down this road. We're not. Nope, nope. Ain't happening. Not at Fishy's table. You can go play that somewhere else.
Actually, at my table, it's mostly all women. So either way, they're gonna get into the romance somehow. I'm like, oh yes, I introduced generic buff orc man number 5. They're like,
How you doing?
listen, I have an entire campaign that I ran. I called it the Pirates of Sweet Tooth Island. It was basically a candy pirate, fantasy dating simulator because that was the one and only game that I actually played through and through, and that's what it basically became over time. And till this day, I actually even have a art of said characters in that game. Where are they at? I know they're here somewhere. Where are they? Man, you have too many piles of everything else in between, and then you got to figure out where everything is. All right, that's not the
Oh,
one.
I'm telling you, man.
All right, here we go. This is just so I can show off my fiance's character. This is her character, who is a elven rogue by the name of Lemon Pez.
Hey,
And
Elvin fiance.
hey, elven fiance. So this character is like a typical rogue, like an archer. Again, this could also playing into today's lesson of like doing fun little character models and whatnot. And again, you get to see the
Mhm.
attitude of said character. Also, the funny part was it was a candy themed campaign. So if you actually look at her earrings, they look like actual like Pez candies. So that was actually like a little fun bit. And I even did that with some of the arrows too. Again, playing into that candy
Oh man.
aesthetic of it.
Oh man, I would hate to get hit with a Jolly Rancher arrow. Oh
Now
my god, that would
listen,
hurt.
no, she had citric acid. What's it called? She had citric acid knives. So they look like just random, like standard run of the mill like knives, but at the end of them, they look like they had like little lemons and like little glass lemons that was filled with like citric acid. So she actually, cut someone up. She was able to deal acid damage as well. So again, those are just fun little bits here and there. Again, love talking tabletops stuff. Honestly, when I make my next roll for hero video, I would love to see your rendition of like the character I roll up, and then kind of see your take on that, because that would
Oh
be
man,
awesome.
absolutely. I would love to. Yeah, we need to you need to send me what you roll up when you get it. When you get that, send it to me and I'll do a drawing for it.
Oh, it's gonna be
Cuz
awesome.
I need to get back to doing more of those drawings. It was so much fun and I miss doing it. And I and like I said, I really don't do any drawing just for myself anymore. I don't do anything that I'm not getting paid for anymore because I'm working all day. So other than the stuff that we scribble out on this, it's essentially all just work, which is great. I get to draw comic books for a living. That's how I paid for my house. It's awesome.
I'm trying to get.
But it would be nice to be able to do some stuff for fun again. Even if that fun has the extra slight little edge of being intended to be stuff I can use on TikTok and Facebook videos and stuff and YouTube videos and get, more engagement. But to be able to do it for fun and do something that I enjoy. I like being able to make up weird characters and stuff. And it's okay if they've got spiked tentacles coming out of them all over the place. If that's what we rolled up, that's what we
Exactly.
rolled up.
Don't we love that? I mean, plus it challenges the creativity. It challenges you to try to make something cohesive. Either you
Mhm.
play into the wackiness or you try to make it as realistic as possible. That is the beauty of character creation. That's the beautiful of creature design. That could be an entire video in and of itself on designing
Oh
creatures.
man. And so many of the characters that ended up like in Green Zone are characters that I rolled up on that in the morning. I'm trying to see if I can get to some of that. I don't think I can from this computer. Uh, but like I rolled up one character, one of the first ones I rolled up that got me like, you know, over 20,000 views was Johnny the Vault. And it was this dude that had magic tattoos and matter absorption and uh, generate tech, I think was what I rolled up. And so I came up with this dude that could absorb materials and they would turn into these tattoos on his body where they were basically stored and he got like bigger and fatter as he went. And got heavier and heavier as he absorbed this mass. And then when he needed it, he could, hit the tattoo and generate whatever it was that was stored in his body. So he made a really great way to haul weapons and gold and money and, whatever you needed. Doesn't work real well with organic things. You don't want him, he absorbs somebody, they're not coming out the same. You don't want to do that. But as far as inorganic, like a stack of guns or bombs or stuff like that. So I ended up making this big sheet of all of his tattoos so I'd remember where everything was on him because my OCD, I got to keep it consistent. And so, like, he's got several pairs of handcuffs around his wrists tattooed in where cops handcuffed him and then he just absorbed them and took off. and he's got like stacks of gold bars and sticks of dynamite and stuff all over his body, and it was a really weird character. He ended up becoming one of the enforcers of the lower eights, the gang that rules Virgil's block in Green Zone. And then I came up with this weird character. I rolled up sound manipulation and multiple arms. And I came up with this four-armed girl. And the more I looked into sound manipulation, I realized it wasn't just like having a sonic scream. It was that you could take sounds and bend them and change them and use them as a weapon. And it was like being a sound bender, like
Hmm.
I'm taking the noise from around me and I'm going to spin that and focus it and I'm going to shoot that back at you as a weapon.
Right.
And you could like tell where things are and how far away they were and how big they were with echolocation, and you could feel the vibrations in the air and all this stuff. And it hit me, with these four hands, she could like feel the vibrations in the air. And then I was like, you know what? She's deaf. She can't even hear this stuff, but she can feel it with her hands, and she can manipulate sounds and use it as a weapon. But she can also use her hands to like sense where people are talking. And in issue 3, I think it's issue 3. No, it's issue 2. In issue 2, she uses it to find a guy that's hiding in a pocket dimension who's not even in this reality, but he can't get his girlfriend to shut up, who's hiding in there with him. And she just keeps talking. And Racket's like, okay, I hear his girlfriend. I hear her. All right, there she is. They're right there, and she's using sign language the whole time, which
Mhm.
is easier with four hands because I can get at least two words out. But like she's over there, and then they had a character that could travel between dimensions, and she zips through and grabs the girlfriend, and has a knife to her throat, and they're like, "All right, Artie, come out, or we're fixing to kill the girl," and and nothing. And that was my favorite part in the whole book. And then the girlfriend starts yelling at Marty like, "Marty Aloysius, don't you better get out here right now!" and and Carlos is just dying laughing like, "I can't believe it!" Like, all right, kill her. I guess we go to Artie's mom's house next. And then he comes out and is like, "No, no, no, you leave my mom out of this." So now he's got his girlfriend yelling at him. He's got this gangster wanting to kill him. Oh my God. It was great. But like, it was such a weird character I rolled up. And she became one of the coolest characters in the book. And when I added her to the book, I'd already made her Filipino because my kids are Filipino, and I wanted to add a Filipino character. Then I was like, well, I was already thinking about making the leader of this gang Filipinos, so they could be cousins. And if they grew up together, then he knows sign language. And now all of a sudden, the gang has this silent language they can use from a distance without phones, without anything that can be tapped, and can talk to each other back and forth. And that suddenly gets really dangerous and like led to all kinds of cool other things. And oh, I love it. And it was just a random rolled up
But
character.
yeah, but again, I was gonna say, all tying into the fact that you just randomly put up an entire character out of a list of random things, and now it became like one of the most integral ideas and one of the most integral characters within at least one of many of your
Hmm.
books.
Oh yeah.
Again, and I feel like that's something really interesting. And honestly, that is something that I would love to do. Like, a part of me wants to just do like an entire thing where like once a month I'll make like a book of like, all right, let's just take the dice, roll a character, and then we'll make a book about, oh, we have Captain Fartman or whatever, and we're going to create an entire story centered around Captain
You
Fartman.
know, we can make a whole chart of different things, different types of struggles and things that he goes in and roll up a random bad guy. And that could be pretty freaking interesting. And we could actually like roll for what happens page to page too.
Okay,
Like,
but you see how cool that becomes now, and at this point,
does he win? Does he lose? Does he get beaten up? Does he fail? Oh my God, rolling a one is my favorite thing out of a role playing game. The funniest, most memorable things that ever happened to my kids. For those of you who don't know, my kids grew up playing my superhero RPG. I've been running this thing for over 30 years. My kids are in their 20s at their best now. So their whole life they've grown up playing this game, and they've always been playing basically the same characters most of the time. The most memorable stories we have are like when they rolled a one. Like, my one kid is a weapons master, but essentially he's Hawkeye. He uses a lot of trick arrows. And they were fighting this guy that I told them all the information they needed to know this guy was psychic and that, he could project hallucinations and stuff, but they never put any of those bits and pieces together. And they're looking for him and they're fighting, and suddenly they're attacked by this giant poop monster in the sewer. And they're throwing everything they can at this monster and they're hitting it with natural 20s. And everything they throw at it goes right through the monster. And then they hear it explode with double damage, like 100 feet down the tunnel. And they never figure out that this thing isn't real. And it keeps coming and they keep getting back in the corner. My son has gone through all of his rocket assisted armor piercing arrows and all his super explosive arrows and all of his buzzsaw arrows and all of this stuff. And he gets down and he pulls out an acid arrow and he draws back and he rolls a 1. And I was like, oh my God, this could be bad. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give you a shot. Roll a 20 sided to see how this goes for you. Like, how bad does this go? He rolled another 1. I'm like, okay, so this goes as bad as it possibly can go. All right. I was like, roll another 20 sided and let's see if it hurts you or somebody around you, like one of your brothers. And I think he rolled like a 2. And I was like, okay. And so I made a quick chart in my head and I rolled. I was like, okay, the acid arrow shatters in your hand and it burns your hand off for X amount of damage. And for an archer to suddenly lose a hand was a big deal. And so for the rest of that mission, like they doctor his hand and he's just like chunking arrows at things and stuff because, he can't use the bow anymore. And now he has a cybernetic hand that can also turn into a little crossbow in a pinch. But they also like using EMPs, so he loses the use of that hand so freaking often because they always are like, almost set off an EMP, not thinking that half of them are cyborgs and bionic and stuff. And I was like, okay, it goes off, your leg doesn't work, Bear shuts down entirely because he's an AI, and your hand doesn't work. What are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot.
But imagine if this was an actual serialized series. Imagine the intensive depth that would like go into that story. Sure, it's a natural one joke of a situation, but imagine this was like a really in-depth, super intensive superhero series.
You've got to make mistakes. Things have to be able to go wrong. Like, at one time he was fighting like a super archer that was a little bit better than him in every way. Like, what if you're pulling back that explosive arrow and somebody else shoots it on the tip while you're drawing back? Like, I mean, that could be game over right there.
Exactly. And I mean, that's also the joy of creating comics. Man, we've been almost at this for 2 whole hours. But I mean,
I know.
Like, I'm just so hyped up talking about this. This is a lot of fun. But it's like,
but the crew's still rocking with us, so we're good.
Hey, we rocking with everybody. I mean, we've increased in viewership as of this part of it. But when you really think about it, telling all of these like awesome stories, you have to let the characters go through mistakes. Now, here's the thing: don't pull a Spider-Man. Don't pull a Spider-Man. All right, Spider-Man in current continuity is so screwed up right now. He cannot he can't afford rent. He can't even stay with Mary Jane because he has to have like 14 different love interests, and he can't even hold a single relationship with any of them. Sold his freaking relationship to the devil. Like, come on. Don't pull a Spider-Man. Let them go through stuff and let them develop, but don't keep punching them down. Let them punch them down, but
Arthur's our ride or die. He's going to be here till the end. He's going to be here after the end, waiting to see if we come back on.
I know, right? Hey, listen, we're loving it here, man. But all to say, though, let your characters go through mistakes as well. And those mistakes can also help out in the design of the character. Again, comic books are a very visual media. Duh. That's why we're artists talking about this. But when you think about it, when you see a character go through changes, that can actually, help a lot with their overall design. One of the weirdest ways, this is like somehow the most nichest thing I'm about to talk about now. So early 2000s, I don't know which year in particular, but Disney created a game called Epic Mickey. Right? It was like you see him going through this like forgotten cartoon world, and there's a thinner and a paint system, right? You paint things, you take things away, right? So one of the original concepts of the game is that it's a morality system, right? Thinner is like you making a bad choice, paint is using the good choice. So throughout the whole course of the game, you had to make the choice of whether you want to do the good stuff or the bad stuff. But one of the things that the game developers wanted to implement was the idea of creating Mickey or making Mickey look different, right? If you chose nothing but the bad stuff, you got to see this more melted, more, sinister looking Mickey Mouse going throughout the wastelands, just doing his own thing, right? Even going as far as to showing him off like partially, like he was still like in the development sketch phase. If he was a full-blown hero, you saw him looking more brighter, like the dark, like the one that he chose most bad choices. He looked darker, more muted in color, very like darkened out. The hero side, very bright, very like heroic in a sense. And then there was one in the middle that wasn't bright, it wasn't dark, it was somewhere like meeting into the middle. And again, like imagine if you were to say take for instance Spider-Man, right? And you kept putting him through amazing heroic situations, you're going to put him in his brighter costume, his classic red and blue. But imagine something bad happens. You can tone down the red, tone down the blue to the point where it can either be muted or, crazily enough, you can put him in his black suit to where he's going through a edgy phase, right?
Mhm.
So it's like those are some very unique things that you can implement, especially when designing a character throughout the story. Because again, comic books are very visual, and if the costume matters that much, or if anything, what helps distinct a character, what they're going through, sometimes is the design of what they're wearing. If a character is bright and happy, you're always going to depict them wearing something very bright, very colorful, very clean cut, whatever. If they're usually sad, it's not really going to be put together well. Again, best example is when Mr. Fish was showing off the your character, the girl
Right.
who, yeah,
Yeah, the homeless girl, yeah.
the homeless girl. So you got to see how like that was able to work out. So again, all to say though, the story matters, and also so does their design. Now, sometimes you don't need to go as far and be super in depth like that, but a little does go a long way. And if you want to somehow show off their development, you also want to show off, like how the character goes through things. Show those moments in the story. Let the characters make mistakes, let them fall. But to implement that they're falling implies that they rose up somewhere.
Mhm.
So the
One thing that I really like that people don't do enough is I like to be able to see a costume evolve. Like that's something that I love. Like on the new animated Spider-Man series, when he starts out in a homemade costume with like big tubes going to his web shooters and stuff, and then he evolves up into a better suit, and then they try on all kinds of super fancy suits and things, and like that was cool. But like I like seeing Spider-Man limp home in a tore up costume. And I like him having to worry about like how am I going to fix this? I don't have another one to put on. Um like the first time he fights Electro and he has to like build a suit out of a red and blue rubber raft to try and insulate himself from the electricity when he's punching him. Like that was neat trying to see him come up with that. I like but the fact is, he's still in basically the same red and blue suit he started out with, unless it's like, Iron Spider or something at
yeah.
sometimes. But like, I like to see characters evolve. Like, if you've been through enough scrapes, I would probably start putting some armor on that a little bit anyway, like on the points that are going to stick out. Like, I like redesigning mainstream characters. My kids always loved me asking me, like, what would the Flash look like if you designed him, or Superman, or whatever. And I would do my rendition of how I would have designed that character if it was me. My Batman was crazy looking. Um, but like if I'm gonna do the Flash, like I'm thinking, man, I want metal bracers and stuff on my arms. I want metal protection on my shins and my knees. So if I clip something as I'm running, I'm not just gonna break my arm. And I want freaking like I want rocket fist style knuckles on my gloves so I can be like a jackhammer and just like without using my actual flesh and blood knuckles that are going to get smashed up and die. Like I've
Mm.
got a face shield, I've got a protector, for wind and gas attacks and stuff. Like
And
I'm thinking all this stuff. I'm thinking Road Rash through. He's in like a leathery suit to protect him.
I mean, again, that's actually not even a bad idea. Again, having this conversation reminded me of Ruben Draws. Ruben Perez, he's an amazing artist on Instagram and on TikTok. And I remember mentioning how like he did his own take on some like very unique DC characters. He did his own take on Superman, and he made his suit look like it was actually made by his mother. You saw the little
Mhm.
stitch marks, you saw the weird underwear, you saw him wearing like wrestler style boots that go all the way up to the freaking to the freaking shins and whatnot. And he even redesigned, Bulldog and some other very niche character that I'm not very familiar with. But again, to see how like you would take those characters and then redesign them, or like putting them through a different circumstance, and that would have to force the design to change. That's just really like a really interesting way. It's like again, like getting to see the suit progress. Like I honestly, trust me, if you saw half of the suit designs I'd done for my character Powerful before I got to where I'm at now, oh my gosh, that is just insanity. I might even have to make that like a flashback thing just so that I can get whatever suits I can remember, just to like
Oh man.
that's just
I
like,
wish I had my artwork from like high school back, because like the stuff I did in junior high and middle school was all such crappy ripoffs of other people's stuff.
right.
Like I had ripoffs of Iceman and Firestar and Spider-Man and the Hulk, and like I had a ripoff of everybody. And I thought I was coming up with so many characters. I was literally just ripping off everything I saw. And
I mean, that's basically the gimmick of my YouTube channel right now. I just take public domain characters and either make a Marvel or DC equivalent of it. If you guys check out my
mhm.
current channel, which is actually the same name right over here, if you see this exact channel name, I basically
And
have it.
it's linked in the comments below, in the description below, by the way. It is linked. And
Thank you. And this, it's not your
along
real.
with
It's
my
actually now this channel proper because now I'm actually monetized now. It's great. But in that whole like I take all these crazy public domain characters and I try to create them in a very unique, kind of way, or I just kind of make my own like rendition if they lived in the Marvel or in the DC universe, stuff of that kind of caliber. Because again, I loved Marvel, DC, and who knows, maybe one day I might actually create my own entire knockoff DC universe, my entire knockoff Marvel universe, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's more or less what I do on my channel. I'm also going to start Roll for a Hero and hopefully dive into some other topics, like actually getting to talk about my comics and other endeavors that I want to start pursuing and such. So yeah, that's stuff that you can find over at my channel. Again, this is the actual name of it, Esteban Carrero. If you guys want to go check it out, please do. It'll be great. We try to have as much fun as we can, and of course, we create art that inspires all. But hopefully, that art inspires more from y'all.
It is always a good time on your channel. I always enjoy your videos. And if you liked this stuff, if you liked what we were talking about, you can go check out gomrfish.com, and that will take you to the live campaign for Alice Lost in Wonderland that's live right now. We're at like 56% of goal. It's going great. There's all kinds of awesome swag you can get. Go check that out, and we will see you next week.
Stay
So
awesome, stay weird, and keep life to the easiest. And never forget that art inspires all, but you can aspire more. And always stay ultra.